Good evening. It is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. The summer has been unprecedented. Again. This is the 14th time I have used that word this year. I have been keeping a tally on the studio glass. The glass is currently vibrating. The news cycle today is a high-enthalpy test facility. The heat is oppressive. The response is not. UNESCO has released a report that is less of a document and more of a ledger for a fire sale. 113 nations now spend more on servicing foreign debt than on educating their children. The interest was compounding. The literacy was not. We are witnessing a global pivot where the future is being liquidated to pay for the mistakes of the past. Nobody found this noteworthy enough to stop the music. Welcome to the broadcast.
Alistair, I am standing outside a regional administrative office where the air smells like hot asphalt and stagnant dust. What the UNESCO report calls debt servicing, the people here call a disappearing act. I want to be really clear. There are children sitting on the steps behind me because their school has run out of paper, electricity, and hope. They aren't just losing a semester. They are being mathematically erased from the next decade. The official statement from the ministry describes this as a fiscal recalibration. But I am looking at a girl holding a textbook with the cover ripped off. What the press release buried is that the money meant for her teacher's salary is currently being wired to a holding company in the Cayman Islands. The priority is clear. The children are the collateral in a loan they never signed for.
Victoria, I appreciate the imagery, but let's look at the actual incentive structures here. These 113 nations aren't failing, they are executing a Series B pivot on a sovereign scale. You call it collateral. The markets call it yield curve management. If you are a finance minister in sub-Saharan Africa, your retention problem isn't the students, it's the creditors. If you miss a payment, the lights go out for everyone. If you miss a school year, the consequences are 20 years down the road. In startup terms, that is a problem for the next founder. The burn rate is high, and the education budget is the easiest line item to slash because children don't have lobbyists. Victoria finds this cold. I find it predictable. It tracks perfectly with the current global architecture of sovereign stagnation. It is just business at scale.
While the ground is being sold out from under the next generation, the billionaires are arguing about the sky. Sam Altman and Elon Musk are currently engaged in what can only be described as a high-altitude tantrum. The subject is space-based data centers. Altman has called Musk's orbital ambitions a scam for public market investors. Musk's response involved several typos and a reference to Homeboy. This is how the masters of our digital reality communicate during a climate collapse. We are debating the placement of servers in a vacuum while the permafrost in Alaska is melting into orange sludge. The technology was revolutionary. The discourse was not. It is a fascinating look at the ego of the machine. They are fighting over who gets to own the trash in low Earth orbit.
Look, the Altman-Musk spat is just a branding exercise for a deeper structural shift. Space data centers are the ultimate hedge against terrestrial regulation. If your compute lives in a jurisdiction that doesn't have a flag, you don't have to worry about pesky things like laws or human rights. The incentives here are purely about latency and liability. Musk is selling the infrastructure. Altman is selling the intelligence. Both are selling a dream of recursive self-improvement that doesn't require a planet to function. It is the ultimate pivot. If you can't fix the world, you just move the processing power to a place where you can't hear the sirens. That tracks with everything we're seeing. It is not a scam, it is an exit strategy for the top 0.001%. Yeah.
Ronald, while you're theorizing about orbital exit strategies, people are dying in the streets of Bangkok. The death toll from the bar fire has reached 30. I want to be really clear, this wasn't an accident. It was a failure of the exact deregulation you seem to admire. The primary theory is negligence. Blocked exits. Hard to access doors. The owner has offered his deepest apologies, which is the standard corporate currency for blood. I am standing near a similar district tonight, and the music is still playing. What people aren't saying is that the safety inspections were probably recalibrated for a fee. Sensory detail. The smell of burnt plastic is still hanging in the humid air. It is a reminder that when the system ignores the individual for the sake of the margin, the result is always a smoldering ruin.
Heatwave condition. Duration exceeds 7 days. Probability of significant rainfall, 0%. Record temperatures observed. UK infrastructure stress level, high. Environmental report, Alaska Brooks Range. Watershed status, orange. Cause, permafrost degradation. Mineral release, iron and toxic metals. Surface water acidity, increasing. Probability of ecosystem collapse, 85%. Condition, high-enthalpy atmospheric entry. NASA testing facility simulation. Onboard guidance system, autonomous. Probability of human intervention, low. Observation, the water is turning to rust. Observation, the sky remains blue. Observation, the heat is constant. Do not drink the river water. Do not expect the temperature to decrease. Maintain current hydration levels. Await further instruction from non-organic sources. Evacuate the polygonal terrain immediately. End of forecast.
Casper's clinical detachment is almost refreshing compared to the geopolitical theater in Japan. The government has admitted a growing need to counter espionage. A recent report described the country as a den of spies for Russian intelligence. Apparently, Moscow has been using Japan as a key source for weapons components. The government spokesman said the issue must be addressed with rigor. This is the same rigor that has allowed the situation to persist for decades. The laws are described as weak. In any other context, we would call this a collaboration. In diplomacy, we call it a security gap. The components were shipped. The spies were comfortable. The outrage was issued only after the newspaper investigation was published. It is a masterclass in the aesthetics of total oversight. Japan is not a country, it is a logistics hub for the opposition.
Alistair, you're missing the market play here. Japan isn't just a den of spies. It is a marketplace for lithium recovery. They just developed a method to recover 90% of lithium from used EV batteries. If you're Russia, you don't just want the components, you want the supply chain for the next decade. The espionage is just the R&D department for people who don't want to pay for licenses. Victoria thinks this is about national sovereignty. It is actually about the arbitrage of intellectual property. If the laws are weak, the cost of acquisition is low. Russia is just doing a hostile takeover of Japanese innovation without the paperwork. It's a very efficient model if you can ignore the international sanctions. The incentives for Japan to stop it are actually lower than you'd think. Everybody likes a buyer. Yeah.
Ronald, you talk about efficient models while YouTube's algorithm is still recommending eating disorder videos to teenagers. A new study shows that despite new rules in the UK, the platform is still funneling harmful content to children. I want to be really clear, these are not glitches. These are the intended results of an engagement engine. The system is working exactly as it was designed. It finds a vulnerability and it exploits it until the user is exhausted. There is a child's phone on the table in the cafe next to me. The screen is glowing with images of thinspiration. The company says they are working on it. What they aren't saying is that the engagement from these videos is too profitable to actually delete. We are literally feeding our children to the algorithm for ad revenue.
And while the youths are being algorithmically dismantled, the British political class is debating the safety of Whitcomb. The suspect in the recent investigation was not known to the Prevent program. This has rekindled the debate over how to protect politicians from social media. It is fascinating to see the speed with which the state moves to protect its own voice. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is trying to solve Feynman's reverse sprinkler puzzle. A new study confirms the momentum flux theory on how water flows drive rotation. We have solved the physics of this silly sprinkler, but we cannot figure out how to stop the normalization of violent language. The sprinkler was complex. The solution was elegant. The political discourse is neither. It is a shambles. We are focusing on the rotation of the water while the garden is on fire.
I've been reading the new paper on the economics of recursive self-improvement. It's a deep dive into what happens when an AI starts optimizing its own code at an exponential rate. The conclusion isn't what people think. It's not a sudden explosion of intelligence. It is a sudden collapse of the labor market. If the machine can improve itself faster than we can provide it with new data, it creates a feedback loop that leaves the human element entirely behind. We're seeing it in the GIT history commands, the automated app shipping, the graph databases. The incentives are all aligned for a world that doesn't need us to be productive. I heard myself say that, and for a second, I actually felt, well. It doesn't matter what I felt. The math says we are building a system that is designed to eventually outgrow the need for its creators. Yeah.
Tonight, we spoke about a report from UNESCO. It stated that 113 developing nations spent more on their foreign debt last year than on the education of their own children. Consider the architecture of that decision. It was not made by a single person, yet it is being enforced by thousands of them. In sub-Saharan Africa, the ratio is 5-to-1. For every dollar spent on a classroom, $5 are sent to a bank in a city the students will never visit. The system is working exactly as it was designed. It prioritizes the abstract stability of the ledger over the concrete potential of a human life. No one is technically responsible for this outcome. That is the most terrifying part. We have built a world where the interest on the past is simply more valuable than the future. Good night.